Police are promising it'll be a bleak winter for burglars across Greater Manchester. That's the message at the start of a new push to cut the number of homes being broken into. Since the start of April, there have been 900 fewer victims than last year. But officers say more action will be taken between now and Christmas, a message they've been hammering home this afternoon in Levenshulme.
I think people are very aware, really, of what's going on. They're very aware of their insecurities. And when you say to someone, right, make sure your window's closed, guarantee they will say, yeah, we always close our windows before we go out, but we know from experience that people don't always close the windows when they go out. Maybe they need reminding about it. And what will happen is he will go out now with that window open thinking, I'm on the second floor, it'll be OK, as we've seen in one of the first houses. And he can look down the road now and there's several downstairs windows open that maybe would give someone opportunity to go in and out of a house.
With me now to talk at greater length about this is Chief Superintendent Russ Jackson. Good afternoon, Chief Superintendent. Obviously, keeping burglaries down is to be applauded at any time of the year, but normally it's the summertime we get these campaigns because people have their doors open and their windows open. I mean, it's cold and it's dark. You'd have thought windows and doors would be shut.
I think the issue about insecurities is a myth in the sense that around most of the year it's 1 in 3 burglaries are all down to insecurities. People often think it's summer, and of course in summer, you leave your windows open. But insecurities are just as prevalent in winter. People just don't think? Yeah, I mean, clearly, you've got windows shut because it's cold, but there's actually doors are locked. So, the average burglar would try a number of house doors and then eventually get lucky.
So what are you, as a force, going to do in the run-up to the winter period, then?
Well, what we've done throughout the year is launched an operation called Storm, which I'm leading. What Storm is our efforts to combat the increase in burglary over the last 18 months, and we need to put a bit of context on this. Since about 2000, the year 2000, burglaries throughout the country have been on the decline, and in GMP, that's in the Greater Manchester area, that's no exception. We've had a 40% reduction. But around October last year, we started getting a real reverse of that trend to such an extent. In April of this year, we had a 10% increase. Now, we're talking about figures here, of course, but the reality is this is about real people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, deeply saddening. One thing that occurs to me is no matter how many burglary suspects I've interviewed over the years, they always talk about this being a victimless crime, and it's not. It's about real people's lives.
Well, what about the policy that says introduce those burglars to their victims and let them see the consequences of their actions? Is there any evidence that works?
I think there are a number of tactics where there has been some successes. I think what we have a challenge with is the real recidivist offenders that are reluctant to engage in any scheme and the amount of devastation they can cause. What we effectively did, therefore, this year is launch Operation Storm to reverse this trend. I should say, to reassure people that the increase that was suffering in Greater Manchester had happened in around half of the UK force areas, and around a quarter had the same increase that the Greater Manchester conurbation had had.
No idea why that is. Why there was a sudden spike in burglary after this reduction, nationwide reduction, which we were all pleased about. Suddenly there was a spike again, and we no idea. Yeah. Some say it was recession linked, and people were struggling for cash, and so they were nicking stuff.
I think the recession is an easy headline to write. I simply don't see the evidence of a connection to the recession. What we do see is some very clear facts, such as we know the price of drugs has risen. We know that we've had some really successful drugs-type operations. We know the purity of drugs has gone down. So in a very basic sense, you have to steal more to fuel your habit. And we've not just got that from facts such as the amount of seizures we've had. We've got that from burglars who've told us so. But there's other factors, such as some 10 years ago, it was a lot more expensive to get a 50-inch plasma screen. And so, therefore, the stolen value was more. You can go to one of the main supermarkets now and buy it for relatively next to nothing. So that has a knock-on effect. So those are some of the factors that are contributing towards it.
The other thing I notice, when burglars are convicted and sentenced and are put behind bars, the number of burglaries in an area will drop. Often, a lot of burglaries are committed by a few people, aren't they?
That's right. I think that there is an incredible amount of opportunistic offenders, and that's perhaps illustrated by the fact that in the last 4 months alone in Greater Manchester, we've arrested 2,500 people for burglary. That's balanced by the fact that there is a small number of those that cause an incredible amount of misery. And what I want to talk about, if I may, is Operation Storm is about targeting those offenders and brigading our resources against those offenders.
So it's about targeting the perpetrators of crime as much as or more than warning the general public about how to not be a victim of crime?
There's many aspects to Operation Storm. In terms of some of some of the elements that we're introducing, we're learning from the major investigation arena, and we're employing some of those tactics in terms of forensics. What we're doing is targeting some of our most prolific offenders. And as a consequence of that and some of the other work, I believe we're now somewhere in the region of 1,000 less victims than we were last year.
Which is good news, but we're coming up to Christmas and lots of valuable stuff in cars and in homes. It must be a time of caution for you.
I mean, successes like this are not achieved by the police alone. There's a myriad of partners, from the Crown Prosecution Service to the local councils, that are involved in this. But another key partner is the public in this. Yeah. This is a community problem and requires a community response. And in all the messages we've sent out this year, we've sent out two very simple messages. And these are often on two sides of a postcard that we've given out. On the one side, it's the issue about insecurities. 1 in 3 burglaries are down to insecurities.
So shut your doors, lock your windows, be sensible.
That's half of the very clear message. But the other one is, if we don't know who's doing these offences, we can't do anything about it. So the other half of all the cards we've given out, the Crime Stoppers message, sometimes nowadays people feel they're not able to contact the police. As much as that saddens me, we have the independent charity Crime Stoppers that people can ring on 0800 555 111.
And the number, of course, that has increased, hasn't it? And
absolutely.
That has been great help to you.
People will have seen the battle bus that we've sent out, the big yellow bus that's been in high footfall areas like the Trafford Centre. And when we sent that out, we know Crime Stoppers increased in terms of information by 25% in that week alone.
Good news, Chief Superintendent. Thanks very much indeed for your time.